In January of this year, a man in Virginia opened his electricity bill. The month before, it was around $100. This time it was $281. He hadn't changed anything. Same house, same habits, same family. He had no idea that 3 miles from his front door, something had just been switched on. It wasn't a power plant. Welcome to Whyy.
They don't want you to see this.
That man isn't alone. Since 2021, residential electricity prices across the United States have risen by more than 36%. Not because of inflation. Inflation rose far slower. Electricity has been climbing nearly 4 times faster than the price of everything else you buy. Lawmakers have started calling this a national crisis, and in the middle of the 2026 election season, it has become one of the few issues that both political parties are suddenly fighting over, for the exact same reason. So what's actually driving this? It's not the thing most people assume. It's not war. It's not oil prices. It's not your local utility company being greedy on its own. It's something almost invisible, buildings most Americans have never even seen. Over the last 3 years, technology companies have been racing to build something the public barely understands: AI data centers. These are massive warehouse-sized buildings, packed with servers, running every AI tool you've ever used: ChatGPT, image generators, voice assistants, recommendation algorithms. Here's the part most people don't know. A single one of these data centers can use enough electricity to power hundreds of thousands of homes. Not hundreds, hundreds of thousands. And companies aren't building one. They're building hundreds of them, all across the country, as fast as physically possible. Global investment in data centers exceeded $61 billion last year alone. This isn't a trend. It's a construction race. And the prize is dominance in artificial intelligence. But here's the question nobody was asking, until residents started opening their bills. Who pays for the electricity these buildings consume? In Northern Virginia, an area now known as Data Center Alley, researchers compared electricity prices in neighborhoods near these facilities to neighborhoods without them. The areas with the highest concentration of data centers saw prices jump 267% over 5 years. 267%. Nearly 3 out of every 4 voters in that state now directly blame data centers for their rising bills. But here's where it gets more complicated and more revealing. A power grid operator called PJM, which manages electricity across 13 states, found that data centers were responsible for $23 billion in additional costs to secure power supply. And a watchdog group monitoring that grid said something remarkable in an official letter. They called it a massive wealth transfer, meaning ordinary households are quietly subsidizing the electricity bills of trillion-dollar technology companies, not through taxes, through their monthly utility bill. This got the attention of the United States Senate. In December 2025, Senators Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, and Richard Blumenthal launched a formal investigation. They sent letters to 7 of the largest technology companies in the world: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and 3 major data center operators. Their letter contained one specific accusation: that these companies were making opaque agreements with utility companies, deals not made public, that allowed them to pass their electricity costs directly onto ordinary American families. The senators wrote something striking. Through these utility price increases, American families are bankrolling the electricity costs of trillion-dollar tech companies, funded in part by your electric bill. And the U.S. Department of Energy projects something even more alarming. By 2028, in just 2 years, data centers could consume 12% of all electricity used in the entire United States. 12%. From buildings most Americans will never see, for a technology most Americans don't fully understand. Here's where the story gets complicated, and where Whyy has to be honest with you. Not everyone agrees on who's really to blame. A semiconductor research firm called SemiAnalysis published a report in early 2026 arguing something unexpected. They said data centers are only part of the story, and that outdated grid infrastructure and decades of underinvestment in the power system play an even bigger role in rising prices. In other words, some of this was already broken long before AI showed up. AI didn't create the crack. It poured a flood of demand directly into it. But here's the twist that changes everything. In January 2026, President Trump personally summoned executives from the largest AI companies to the White House. He asked them to sign something called the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, a public promise that their data centers would not drive up electricity prices for ordinary households. Microsoft signed it, and electricity prices kept rising anyway. By February 2026, 1 month after that pledge, residential prices had reached 17.44 cents per kilowatt hour, up from 12.76 cents just 6 years earlier. A public promise made to the president, broken by the math on every household's bill. So here is what we actually know with certainty. The technology being built right now, the AI tools transforming how the world works, requires a level of electricity that the existing American power grid was never designed to handle. Building that capacity costs money, a staggering amount of money. The Edison Electric Institute, representing the country's major utility companies, estimates its members will spend $1.1 trillion upgrading infrastructure between 2025 and 2029. Someone has to pay for that. And right now, across most of the country, that someone is you, embedded quietly into a monthly bill you might not even read closely. Not through a new tax, not through a headline, through a number that creeps upward, a few dollars at a time. Easy to miss, easy to absorb into the cost of living. That man in Virginia, the one who opened his bill and found it had nearly tripled, he still doesn't fully understand why. Most Americans don't, because the system was never designed to be understood. It was designed to be paid. The AI revolution is real. Next time you open your electricity bill, look at the number a little closer, because somewhere behind that number, a machine is running, learning, generating, growing, and you've been paying its electricity bill without ever being told. Subscribe. Because the most expensive stories are always the ones being told while nobody is paying attention.